everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to I Just Want to Know. I'm your guys' host, Alan K., accompanied by your other favorite host, Carmel Humphreys.
Hello. What's going down?
What's up? What's up? Just as we said on the first episode, this is going to be the second segment of our relationship episode that we had last week. And like we said in the first episode, the very, very first episode, we're going to have a guest or a person from a different perspective so that we can all learn from this.
Because we just want to know.
We just want to know.
Exactly.
So today we have a very, very special guest. She is a holistic coach. She is the founder and the executive director of a nonprofit that specializes in giving back to the community on a global surface called Kind Footprint.
Yes.
And find that on Instagram and Facebook, by the way. She's amazing on the inside and out. Please welcome Jessica Esfandiary. How are you today?
Thank you, Alan. I'm amazing. And Carmel, I'm doing very good.
Very
All right.
good. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Right. I know you're a very, very busy person, so thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome.
So kind of like how we prefaced last week, me and Carmel touched on relationships in the sense that there was a new study that said, believe it was by the Washington Post, said the divorce rate is now at 50%, right? And I don't want to say now, it seems like it's been 50% for a while. And ironically, both me and Carmel are both divorced. So now I had to go in like, man, who do I know that seems like they're in a very, very happy and loving marriage and relationship? And you actually came to mind.
Ding, ding, ding.
And so, I just want to know, and I believe Carmel just wants to know as well, what do you believe is what has kept you and Pasha happy in your guys' marriage?
So many things.
Okay.
I mean, but when people ask this question, I think you're looking for like one or two solid foundational tools. And I would say communication above all, and like authentic communication, like real honesty with yourself, like that kind of authenticity, and then to be able to share that with your partner. And then just like, as silly as it sounds, not sweating the small stuff. I find that like, as you know, as I work with more couples in like from a coaching point of view, I just find that people get so hung up on the littlest things. And so it makes me reflect on my relationship. And do I do that? Sometimes. But I would say that 90% of the time when something is small, we just let it roll, you know, unless it's like a reoccurring thing. But communication, and then just that, and finding ways to like laugh at the little things rather than allow them to become big situations that need like, you know, figuring out and rectifying and nagging each other over, you know, over like laundry on the floor, which is something, you know, people, you know, women more than men complain about all the time. And it's like, you're going to have that issue for the next 40 years. So just either put it in the basket or bitch about it, you know?
So is laundry, so what are the small things that you think that people take too much or take too much into importance or think it's way too drastic or anything like that?
That kind of thing, like small things or, you know, silly things that are never going to change. Like my husband is never probably ever going to be able to cook for himself. I mean, unless I move out, which I've tried, like that's actually not true. But those who know me know that I travel a ton, like extensively. Last week I was gone at one point for like a 7-week stretch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he came to meet me halfway through. It was amazing. We spent some time in Australia and New Zealand together. But before that time, we were apart for 3 weeks and then apart for 4 weeks. And I just don't know what he ate while I was gone. Because while I'm home, unless I put it in a bowl for him and put it in front of him, like it's not there. He'll be like, babe, where are the leftovers? I'm like, they're right in the fridge. And he's like, no, I can't find them. And I make this joke, it's because they're not singing and dancing in front of him. Like it has to be like, I'm over here. You know, like, where's the sriracha? It's not dancing for you. But silly stuff like that, where I think a lot of people would find ways to nag or complain. And then with men, like, you know, just the simple things that your wife is always going to do. Yeah, this is kind of tilted. Let me fix it.
Yeah,
woo, there we go. Like, he used to harp on me for never being able to give directions when we're driving.
So what, you're not able to coherently, or like you're just able, or what do you mean? Like,
if I'm in the passenger seat and I'll say, I'm going to pull up the address and navigate and get you there. And I'm going to give you directions the whole way. I will definitely have you miss at least 50% of the turns because I get deep into thought or conversation. And that's just one of the things. But we've learned that as silly as it sounds, like, just forget about that stuff because that's not really, important at the end of the day, and find more humor and laughter about the things the quirks that make you, that in the beginning, I think really made you fall in love and then can, have a tendency to become annoying. But it's like changing the perspective and looking at that stuff as like, that's not that big of a deal. And that's just who she is. She's never going to give great directions.
So do you think though that sometimes there's a transition from girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, then husband, wife? Now there's like this expectation to fulfill or meet certain gaps or things that like weren't there in the boyfriend girlfriend, because the boyfriend girlfriend stage is very fun.
Yes,
it's very amorous and things are just nice and fluffy. But then like now there's a commitment. All of a sudden these expectations come out like, oh, well, where'd this come from? Like, do you guys not have that, or when that showed up, it was just like, okay?
It's interesting you bring this up. I just gave a talk. And I wrote this talk called Your Partner's Not Your Superhero. And it's about everything that you just touched on, in the way that when you move from boyfriend and girlfriend or just friends into a committed relationship, you start to expect your partner to be everything for you, right? Your superhero. They're supposed to be able to meet all your emotional needs. They're supposed to be there for you to talk about your day at work, to, complain about maybe your friends or family. They're supposed to be the one that you can have fun with and explore and travel and work out with and all of these things. And it's like, you kind of lose yourself in the relationship then if you only have one person that you're expecting to be your everything. And so the answer to your question is yes, I think that that's like something that we've shied away from in our relationship. Okay. We heavily lean on, we love each other so much and we want to be together a lot, but we also lean on our community. We both actively nourish our relationships with friends and family. And we, as much as we have like a lot of the same friends, we try to like go off on trips. Like I have girlfriends from home that don't live in LA because I'm from Philadelphia, and I'll try to see them. And he has, friendships that he'll go on boys trips, and then we come back together and things are fresh and new because we have new stuff to talk about. Sure. We've known each other for almost 8 years. So eventually you find out everything about a person, and it's, a huge part of falling in love is that discovery, right? You're getting to know someone. It's so cool. Everything you find out about them is amazing. But eventually you run out of things, and it's not sexy knowing everything about a person. Like it's just not. That's funny. And so encouraging each other to really have new experiences with new people, and then coming back, having grown separately, coming back together is really fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're talking about new experiences and new people, right? And so I would say that from a traditional standpoint, you guys aren't the traditional, just one man, one woman, pure monogamy type of relationship, right? You guys are an open relationship, correct?
We're in an open relationship.
So can you briefly touch on that by any chance, and kind of let us know what that's like kind of about? So
It's so open can mean a lot of things for different people. I think that there's the whole polyamory, and there's open, and there's a lot of different terms for these types of relationships, which are very alternative. At least we consider them alternative in our modern society. And everyone's different. And so I can't speak to other people's relationship, but the way ours works right now is we communicate about everything before it happens, almost always, unless it's like a situation that has already happened or something.
Okay.
And yeah, we both see other people from time to time.
Nice. Now, do you feel like that's like improved your guys' relationship, or do you feel, or how does that make you, I guess?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. We've been open. Well, we haven't been open forever, but we gradually moved into an experiential kind of like, let's try things out relationship from a pretty early point. We were together for about 8 or 9 months the first time that we ever had a threesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was this really happy accident, actually.
Wow.
And it wasn't planned. You know, we were just like out together. We lived in Vegas at the time. And we just brought home this really beautiful woman. And I was like, well, that was fun.
That was fun.
And it was my first time and it was his first time. And it was before we were married. And we kind of woke up the next day and I was like, I would do that again. And he's like, really? Because I would do that, you know, all the time, of course. But through that experience and, you know, just that one time, I was like, okay, you know, for me, I had thoughts about women my whole life. I mean, from even when I was like in high school, like I just knew that I thought women were attractive or girls, but I never had the confidence to really act on it. Even through college, I would, you know, like you're in college, you're a girl, whatever. Like I had little slight experiences, like maybe a kiss here or there. I was a bartender for a long time. So, you know, you're partying and whatever, but I still never allowed myself to just explore, mostly because of societal norms. And I was raised, you know, I love my parents. They're amazing. And they accept me for all the wackiness that I am. But even back then, there's that like, well, what will everyone think? What will my parents think kind of thing? And I just had lacked the confidence in myself. So I didn't pursue anything. And then with Pasha, it was really the first relationship ever where I felt so like safe. And yeah, that really opened me up to say, well, what do I want? Like, this is something that I've wanted for a while and I've never actually like even dipped my toe in the water. Let me do it again, you know? And so it kind of grew from there. And we weren't just like throwing the doors open right away. You know, we were like, okay, well, let's see what this feels like. And then we would maybe try something else. And then we would try something else. And then slowly but surely, I would say maybe we got married in only a year's time of being together. And then maybe a year after being married, we were pretty much open and very comfortable and, you know, secure in like taking steps. And the way it works for us, it's like we talk about things first. And if the other person is uncomfortable with something, we generally won't do it, or we'll try it and see if we like it. But if we don't, we just pull back. We found along the way we never make the other person wrong for like having a want or desire. You know, and then if we don't like it, we just don't do it again.
Right.
But I forgot about this. I actually gave a talk at Burning Man this year on being in an open relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was actually my coming out party because I never talked about it before publicly.
Oh.
And that was, you know, in this very cool alternate desert
Right, that's
society.
the place to do it. Yeah.
So this is, you know, the next time I'm really talking about it in a very public forum.
I feel very privileged. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So it sounds like it's very mercurial in that if it's kind of working for one of you, you kind of go along with it and test it. And if it's not, okay, we tried it, didn't work. It doesn't sound very restrictive, but there are guidelines and boundaries, obviously. Okay.
Yeah, and that's very helpful to know really what the other person's comfortable with, and also because it's nice to have like that safety net of coming home. And I think boundaries are important for stepping along in like at a nice pace to kind of allow yourself to recalibrate, because it's not always easy. People think that like, oh, Jessica doesn't have an ounce of jealousy, but it's like, well, no, I've just worked through it over the years. So that's why we, you know, step by step through boundaries, and then testing boundaries or pushing them, and, you know, seeing what's really going on inside rather than putting the blame like outside. Like, I don't like this because of you, when it's really just something inside me that's, you know, coming up.
Right. So have you guys ever had situations where you guys communicated before, and then you said, like you were saying, you went through kind of like a jealous like thing, like, oh, hey, seems like he's having way more fun with her. And then I guess, like, have you ever gone through one of those where you are feeling jealous, and then how did you work through it per se?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I've never I've never been jealous in that way of like, he seems like he's having way more fun. The thought, so it's funny. The first time I ever even like had the jealousy thing was really a thought. I was afraid I was going to feel jealous. And so I was like, we can't do that, because I was afraid I was going to feel jealous. And then I realized, am I actually feeling jealousy, or is this excitement or like anxiety? Like, what is it? Because they feel the same in your body, actually. Like when it comes down to it, the physical sensations of jealousy and anxiety, because it's like fear of something that's going to happen in the future, are very similar to like excitement, you know, or like just a little bit of that, like whatever it is, like your palms get sweaty, your heartbeat accelerates. And so it was, you know, because I had already done like some emotional intelligence work, and I had been to like some seminars about like personal power, I'm like, well, you know, am I going to live in fear, or am I going to take the risk to see like what this is all really about? And then I remember the first time, because you've asked me this before, like, you know, seeing him with another woman, like, has that ever made me jealous? And actually, no, like, actually seeing it live is really great.
Wow, that's amazing.
There's like there's no shred of jealousy. It's actually like, well, that's really amazing.
So what about that is great for you, if you don't mind?
So, one, it's very liberating to like step into what could be jealousy. And then not feel it. It's like I get this like rush of energy. And then, you know, if I'm just being frank, it's like my own personal, it's like what I would want to watch anyway if I was going to like hop online,
okay, it's live
you
porn.
know?
It's live porn. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, because I'm also like very much into girls. So it's great to have that experience and to be with more people. And so there's this term called compersion. I don't know if you've ever heard it.
No, I haven't.
But it's finding joy in being able to like see your partner enjoy themselves, or be like, you know, in our situation, like in love, or feel love for someone else, have bliss, whatever it is, you find joy in their joy. And it's called compersion. So, I mean, people in the like open or polyamorous community, or like whatever you want to name it, all the labels kind of irk me, but I first heard about it through Whitney Miller, you know, who was dating Aubrey Marcus for a long time, and I follow her, and she has a podcast too, but she's really one of the first women to come out and like really talk about what it's like to be in an open relationship, like in a pretty public space, and to, you know, have a big following or influence. And so I've kind of gotten a lot over the years through just listening to her and her experiences. Right.
No, that's pretty awesome. You know, I like to keep harping on this, because it seems like every single time I've talked to somebody that's in a successful relationship, they always talk about communication is key, right? And even it doesn't even matter if you're sleeping with other people or if you're potentially pursuing other things, as long as the other partner stays informed, stays, you know, communicated, and in the loop, then they don't feel so betrayed, right?
Absolutely.
So do you feel now with regular monogamous relationship, because you do give a lot of relationship advice?
I do, and most of my clients and couples and singles that I talk to are monogamous. It's funny, I'm waiting for like to get the open people to come to me, but a few monogamous people have like questioned and wanted to be potentially open and have talked to their partners very successfully with my coaching. But yeah, go ahead, finish your question.
well, no, I mean, I guess I want to divulge into that. Is like, I guess what are the usual problems outside of like the small things that we're talking about? What are the usual problems that people come up to you with that need coaching on relationships, and staying in their own respective monogamous relationships?
So it really, it's so silly, but it really is like a lot of communication problems. I know, it's like the same things are reoccurring, but they look different. And it really comes back down to like, have you shared your feelings? And then what I take people to normally when they have issues that surround communication, it's that they actually don't know what they want and what they want to communicate. So I really work with people on a level of, you know, let's, whatever the problem is, like he should have known or she could have done this differently, and they're not communicating, I'll kind of separate it and have that person take responsibility, right? Just for themselves. Because I always share with people, like, you can only change yourself. You can only control, you know, your actions, and you are responsible for yourself alone. So, and they're like, well, what's that going to do if I change and they do nothing? And I'm like, if you shift, they're going to shift. It's just the law of the universe. You know, if you change, someone else is going to have to change how they respond to you.
Sure.
So what I usually do is I'll take people through, you know, whether it's questions or meditation sometime, on finding out what it is they really want and what they're really upset about. Because to go back to something silly like the laundry on the floor, that's not what they're upset about. It's the woman's upset that maybe she feels like she's being taken for granted that she does the laundry, or that she's not being seen, or that that's disrespectful. So, you know, what's that trigger for you? And then finding where it usually comes from, which is a long, you know, long gone memory or an experience from, you know, childhood or early adult life. Maybe sometimes a first relationship where you made a decision, and then that's getting triggered. And so I hope that answers your question. But I usually have people find the responsibility in what they really want to communicate. So that, like, radical honesty, you know, like, actually, I'm not upset with him about this. I just don't feel seen or heard or whatever it is. And then helping them communicate that in a compassionate way for the other person. Because then once you're there, it's like, do you think that he really doesn't, you know, do you think that, you know, your boyfriend or your husband or whatever, flipping it, your wife or your girlfriend really wants you to feel disrespected? Is that their intention? And they're like, well, of course not. And it's like, well, if you told them that that's how it's making you feel, do you think they would shift? Well, of course, you know, and it's getting people to that and not fighting about the dishes in the sink.
Do you think also, because you're very, you know, you have your mind on right, your head on right, everything about you seems you're very aligned. You know what you want, you know what you're doing. You're very active. You got a lot going on, so you have a very strong identity. I think I see a lot in relationships is women often don't have an identity. And so oftentimes they'll cling on to a man because I'm supposed to. I need to find a husband. Or there's this old traditional thing, you know, when you're going to get married. And then they could even have a career already, and they're kind of expected to, like, set that aside to take care of a man and raise a family.
Yeah.
So it sounds like in your relationship it's very balanced. Do you think that's often a big issue in relationships, that people get married before they have their own identity?
I do. I think it's shifting, though. I would say, especially in this younger generation, like people in their 20s, I saw a study recently, they're getting, like, it was something crazy, like the marriage rate for 20 somethings has dropped 40% since the 1970s, which is like almost half.
Wow.
So I don't think we're going to be facing that problem much longer, especially because 20 somethings nowadays are like, what's the point of getting married? They're much more focused on career. People aren't having children. So the feeling that need to really couple up in a traditional way, I think, isn't as strong. However, I was that girl that lost myself in every relationship.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have a strong identity. And, you know, a lot in part because, you know, I didn't have the confidence in a lot of other areas in my life, not just like with my sexuality, but, you know, I went to school for theater, and I didn't have the confidence to like continue acting as a profession, like once I graduated college, and I didn't have the confidence for all these other things. So when I would date a guy, I would like very much lose myself in him. And I make this joke that I was like microbrewing beer in my house, like when I was in my early 20s, because that's what my boyfriend was into. Like that was not my, you know, what I wanted to be doing. So I think, you know, and I'll be 35. So I'm kind of like a cusper as a millennial. I'm like, I guess technically I'm a millennial, but I don't identify that way, mostly because I'm not great with technology. So I like missed the boat. But yeah, so I think like people my age and older have had that problem. And, you know, it's a societal thing. There's a lot of pressure on women to be the ones to raise children for, full time. And so, yeah, it's that idea of like, why would I put my everything into a career or build something that I'm just going to have to give up once I start having kids? And it's, it's easy to want to slip right into, the one, because it's everything that we've been raised to like work towards. Every story, every fairy tale, every Disney movie, every book you've been read at bedtime, even like down to Braveheart, you're like that one great love, that's going to complete you. And so I think, yeah, in a lot of ways, that's what you're set up for as a woman. But luckily, this generation, they're very, very inspiring.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree. I think I see this generation getting married a lot older,
if
ever, if at all, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the more way I've been leaning towards, even after getting divorced, is like what does getting married really mean? Like, if I get married again, I don't necessarily need a judge or a priest or anyone to tell me that I'm married.
Right.
Like, you don't get to decide anything, really. Like, if I just say I'm married, I'm married. That should be enough. Like, why do I have to go through all this, like, red tape to say, oh, okay, now I'm married. Now I'm committed, because it's harder to get out of it. Well, I really don't want to be in it. So it's like, I don't understand that. So I think a lot of the traditions where we've seen established for the past, thousands of years through our, Western society, of course, before that, are kind of, deteriorating.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think it's cool. I appreciate your boundaries. That's really what I like to. What I'm hearing from you and Pasha, that you guys have a set of standards and guidelines, and they may vary back and forth because every situation is not the same. But at least you have that, because then I have a lot of people who get into open relationships and they're just wilding out. They're like, I'm like, that's not what this is supposed to be.
Yeah, and like, I can't tell you like what is best for everybody. People always ask me like, well, monogamy, are you against it? Do you think polyamory is better for everybody? And it's like, every single person is different. I can only tell you what works for me. But in my experience with, just talking to couples and finding out people who do, try out an open relationship, if you don't have a strong foundation and connection, like we spent a good, almost year just with each other before we ever had one experience. And then that next year after was like also just a few limited experiences that were together, and then year 3 was like a few more experiences together and then maybe like a few apart. So we kind of treaded lightly into this thing. Right. We have such a strong foundation and core that, we know we want to be together forever. And that's what makes the difference. I have a feeling when people are like, they just get into a relationship and they're like, let's try to be open after, like 2 months. I can't, like maybe it will work because everyone's different and maybe it's going to meet all their needs, but that would never work for me. Yeah. I think you definitely need that strong foundation and to check back in. And, it's interesting. We have a girlfriend for the first time ever, which is like really new and something we didn't really plan for. And it's like extremely exciting to like be sharing this kind of new experience. And it's amazing. I love it. But for the first time ever, we're like, okay, we need to, we realized we weren't very intentional, like if we were spending enough time, just the two of us. So now that's another thing we've identified, like that we get to make sure that we have enough of that in our relationship as well.
Yeah. So when you had this other girlfriend, right? And so who introduced who to the couple, and then how did that just start resonating into like, hey, you know what? Let's all be together. So,
oh God, I love her so much. We actually were all friends first. Yeah, we met. Well, it's funny. They met 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Actually, around the time that we met, they also met. They went on a date. And immediately she friend zoned him, and they like never, he like never had a shot. It's so funny. So it's a really cute story.
He's like, I got back in.
Yeah.
Here.
7 years later.
Yeah. They went on like one date and it didn't work. And he ended up like crashing on her couch, and then like they went to like they saw each other. We all used to live in Vegas, so I guess like they went to a few same parties, and he's like, I was clearly friend zoned. And so recently she just kind of popped up in our circle of friends again, and ended up becoming really good friends with one of our best friends, Claude and Tony, and ended up moving in with them when she wanted to move from Vegas to LA. And yeah, so she's living like less than a mile from our house with two of our best friends. Naturally, she was just over all the time, and her and I became really close. You know, which is nice because I don't have a ton of girlfriends in LA. I have like such a strong girl squad, but you know, I have very limited, like all my close girlfriends live kind of scattered. And so I was like, oh, this is so great. Like, she's amazing, and she's an incredible photographer. She's so talented. So one day we went out to do a photo shoot, and she, you know, like got me naked within like a half hour. She's like, you know what would make this photo better? We're like hiking. We're like in the woods, and I'm like taking yoga photos, just like, you know, for my whatever for my website. And then I'm like, I'm not going to be able to use any of these photos, but this is really fun, you know, for like girls. And she's just so great behind the camera. I felt so comfortable. So very shortly after that, yeah, one thing led to another.
All right.
And that's how it happened. And the three of us, like, we had gotten so close, and we were just like always going to dinner, or, you know, we're like, I have a co-working space at my house twice a week. So friends are always coming over and like declaring what they're going to accomplish that week. And she was part of that group. It's like almost a little mastermind thing that we do. And yeah, so that was it. We went to a dinner one night, the three of us, and we came home, and now we have a girlfriend.
That's the thing. All right. And how long has it now been official?
We never really, you know, put a date on it, but I think June was when it happened.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. June 13th.
I know. I was going to say, someone knows in this group. I guarantee you someone knows
June
exactly.
13th,
right.
8:45 p.m.
Please.
over a glass of Cabernet.
Please.
Not to be specific,
All right.
but, you know.
Jessica
Right.
and Lauren in a heart.
No.
Wow.
Right. And honestly, I mean, I've seen them all three together, and it is an amazing love connection.
Wow.
And right, so it's something,
Okay.
obviously, something that I've never experienced before.
Neither have I.
And right, neither have I've never been that honored or blessed, I guess, in that case. I haven't been a pasha in my life. But you know, it is like, you know, when you see them, like they love each other so much that you feel it, and it's very outward focused when you see them. And I'm in awe every time, because I mean, even the friends that, you know, every time I've ever gone over to Jess and Pasha's, like the friends are just so loving too. And you could just tell, like, that's the relationship that they have all with one another, is that they're so loving. They're just like, oh my God, I love myself now just by being in this house and being around them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You know, that makes me so happy, Alan. Thank you. Cause like, that's always my intention with people. I've been this way since I was a kid. My mom is the best. She created so much community. My dad too. Like, actually, my parents, they've been divorced since before I was 2, but my parents are both like in love with life and their friends. Nothing makes them happier than to be around their friends and be in community. And I'm so lucky, I feel like, being raised that way. Like, we didn't have a lot, but we always had a lot of people around. And so naturally, I'm just like that person in our community too.
Right.
And I'm always like having something in my house, and whether it's a dinner or whatever, a potluck, but just really, like I said earlier, leaning into your community and your tribe, because your partner, it's exhausting for them to try to be everything. So why not have the best friends in the world and show each other love and have deep, intimate, connected relationships with the people in your life? Because a lot of times we reserve like all these parts of ourselves for like our person, or I'm waiting for the one, but it's like, then you don't use all your love and like you give it away. You know, like, what's the point in life?
I agree.
Like, I try to fall in love all the time, not like necessarily romantically, but with people, with friends, with life, with experiences, because that's like, you know, there's only 2 emotions. Like, if, you know, you really think about it, there's fear and there's love, and love is expansive. So when you give it, you feel good. When you buy that cup of coffee for the person behind you, it feels so good. Right. So It's one thing I never have boundaries on. It's like I want to love everybody and want everybody to feel that. So I'm glad you do. You got to come over.
I do. I need to experience this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For real.
that's amazing. So to go into your loving and outward focus, like said, you're the founder of Kind Footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Can you briefly describe what that is and what the purpose of all that is?
Yeah. So I went to Nepal 2 years ago for the first time. I've been back since with a couple friends of ours, Steve Cha and Ryan Greeley. And we trekked the Annapurna Circuit, which is like a 25-day trek through the Himalayas. And it's grueling, and you're like sleeping in tea house, like on tea house floors. Wow. And you're, hiking like with your 25-pound backpack on. Jeez. Like, 12 to 15 miles a day. It's amazing though. And I knew I was going on this trip, and I was like, I want to find a way to give back while I'm there, because I'm going to be there for a long time, and I'm going to really get to like sink into this culture and hopefully get to know the people. And, I know that there's a lot of things I can do in Nepal. The country is definitely still like, it's a developing country, and they have a lot of issues with education. And so I was very drawn to like school, the idea of building a school or like helping, kids or girls specifically. And I just like put the intention out there, and I got connected with this organization, the Unati Foundation, which actually a woman in Santa Monica started. Like 16, 18 years ago. And she runs a group home for girls in Nepal, in Bhaktapur, which is this little like village outside Kathmandu. And she allowed me to go and meet the girls. She has this group home, and there's like 25 girls, and I got to go meet them and like instantly fall in love with these kids, because they're brilliant and they're amazing. And I came home, and I'm like, I want to do something for them. I want to raise money. I want to like make a difference. And the idea of Kind Footprint had already started, because I'm like, I want to give back everywhere I go. I thought I was going to have a travel blog. And I made like one really amazing video. It's on YouTube. You can go watch. I don't even know what it's called, but, and I was like, I'm going to have this travel blog, and everywhere I travel to, I'm going to find a way to give back. And we're going to highlight, all these small organizations around the world that are doing good work. And that's how the idea was born. And then I came home, and I did a little bit of that, and I would go somewhere, and I would like, volunteer at, an animal shelter, or, we would find, we went to a school in Fiji, and wherever we would go, like an elephant sanctuary, try to find ways to give back. And then I realized, well, it's all like a lot of research, right? To figure out the place and identify it and qualify it and see that, okay, the money's going to the right place. And I started to ask my friends, like, and really people that are much smarter than me, like when I started to put together a board of directors, like, why don't people give back while they travel? And a lot of the time is they just like don't know how. It's like there's so much planning that goes into like a big trip like that on your own, with your flights and your hotels and your itinerary, that then the idea of finding like a nonprofit, and sometimes you can't even, they're not actually nonprofits because they're overseas, so they have different laws, and how do you know the money's going to the right place? Right. That's a lot. So I was like, well, we could do that. So now we're developing a research team, which one of our friends, Chelsea Pierce, is heading up, and opening up all of these doorways with organizations around the world through other friends that have been doing this already through their retreat companies. My friend Brandon Collingsworth goes to Peru every year. And so I'm creating a network to connect people with organizations as they travel.
Oh, nice.
And then whether they want to use Kind Footprint as a platform just to share their story, whether it's a video or a blog post, or they actually want to run a fundraising campaign through Kind Footprint, we can host it and take care of really whatever they want to do. That's cool. Eventually we'll have an app. So it'll be an app you can download with an interactive map, and you're like, you take your, kids to Costa Rica for the week, and you want to give back for like half a day, you can pop open the app and like, okay, great, Costa Rica. Oh, cool. I could go to this school. I can volunteer, at a women and children's shelter. Awesome. Right. And that's the plan.
That's a great idea.
That is
awesome.
amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just like, and that's what I'm like, that's what I love about you so much, is that like you're so outward focused on a regular basis. Like even with your, you know, situation, your open relationship, it's all about loving people and just continuously like not stopping it for any boundary. Just keep loving and loving and loving. And I think that's the most amazing thing about that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
People always ask me like, well, what if, you know, aren't you afraid you're going to get hurt? Or, you know, those are great questions. Like even my mom, when I told her, she's like, that's kind of risky, don't you think? And I'm like, yeah, it is in a lot of ways. But is my fear going to like stop me from doing it? No, I'd rather do it and take the chance that I'm going to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
So now where can we find Kind Footprint? Is there...
So you can find Kind Footprint at Kind Footprint on Instagram or www.kindfootprint.org.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Very cool.
Jessica, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
I
you,
learned
guys.
so much.
Oh,
I need to communicate and find myself 2 girlfriends, I guess.
I gotta. Well, I'll coach you through it.
Coach me through it. I appreciate that. All right,
That's
everybody. Well, thank you very much for joining today. And hope you have a great rest of your Friday. And thank you very much.
Peace.
Thank you, guys.
That was awesome.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I
hope
learned
I
a
didn't.
lot right now.